You were live on YouTube.
You all set? Okay. I'm going to open this up. This is the County Arpa Tax Force. Date today is the 8th of March. If you don't have one, there's a menu over on the side there so you can follow along. I'm going to turn it over to Co-Chair Claudia. Don't mess it up.
Thank you, Co-Chair Dennis. There's no messing it up. We're all in this together. Just a matter of housekeeping. We do have a person to announce as our vice chair in the event that Dennis and I are not available, which we hope won't happen, but we're happy to announce Supervisor Sieber as vice chair of the committee. Thank you. Thank you for your willingness. And also, Ethan, do you want to give us some of those other updates in 1A
sure.
and B?
Yeah, just very quickly, we got some more projects into the project solicitation portal. I packaged those up as of this afternoon and circulated those to the committee. So we're up to about 55 or so. There's still a couple loose projects that were submitted via telephone that we need to add into that portal, but there's an updated packet for everyone in your email. And then the other item was we talked about making sure we have transparency in the process. So I spoke with Mike Colin from IT and then Don Lehman about making sure we get materials out onto the website in a timely fashion. So I think we'll see coordinated updates on there.
Is that on the planning department's subpage? Are you talking about?
There's a standalone site on the county webpage, just ARPA.
Oh, for ARPA. Okay.
Yeah, so there's already project information there. We've got, the results public survey and project solicitation link is also there. So we're going to continue to put stuff out like the draft priorities and other materials as we develop them.
Okay, great. Any questions on that? Supervisor McGowan?
No, I need Tammy. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Tammy. If you look at the second item on the agenda, discussion, we do have three things there. The first one is just to touch on the draft allocation discussion. You'll see there was a new handout for today dated with today's date. Just to take a look at that, we do not need to make any decisions about this today. The second item is the detailed spending proposals that we talked about last week, that committee members wanted to see the details before we took any action on those. So they have come back to us. And I think that we will be ready for the committee to take action on those today. That's 2B. And then C is a presentation of ideas to assist vulnerable populations. I'm hoping that Wayne can give us an overview, and then we've invited Liza to come and talk about some of the proposals from not-for-profits that she has worked with on submitting proposals in through the project solicitation website. Okay. All right. So for 2A, the draft allocation discussion, this was put together by Wayne and the planning department to give us some framework about where we're going with spending the $12 million. It's still very much a draft. You'll see, well, actually somehow the draft watermark got disappeared onto the back of the paper, but there's the 4 different categories here, which I personally don't love how we've categorized this, but the first one is these items that we're talking about in 2B. The second category, infrastructure, pandemic response, county resilience. There's a lot of things that are here for the municipal county planning. And then the last one, which I think is really important and is also number 1 on our priorities list that we had consensus around last week, is assisting vulnerable populations. The Community Services Board, Economic Workforce Development, Health Services, Housing Assistance. You'll see there's $1 million just plugged in there sort of as a placekeeper. We don't have specific proposals yet, although that's one of the things that I'd like Liza to talk about is the economic and workforce development proposals that she has in mind that came through the project solicitation. Wayne, is there anything else you want to talk about on this?
Well, that was item C on the agenda. Did you want to skip ahead to that or?
No, not yet. Just on this
No,
draft allocation discussion. Then we'll open it up for discussion by
I
others.
think is, I guess I got to turn the mic down here, right? No?
No.
Okay, that one.
Yes.
All right. So this was kind of my thought as we worked through things. I did talk to Rob York at Community Services Board about the concept of saying, if we were to do a $250,000 allocation for 4 years, $1 million, would the Community Services Board with their 16 partner organizations, would they be able to allocate amongst themselves where that funding should go? I mean, because they know it better than I do, what their needs are. He thought that was a great idea. I told him we'd require a work plan of where it would go. We'd make sure it met the requirements. And in concept, he was agreeable to that. Liza was agreeable to the same type of concept. So what this does is it just kind of, block set aside of this is where we'd see the funding go. And, there'd be a development of actual work programs as part of this that, again, would be submitted. We'd review, say, yes, it complies. No, it doesn't. Have a rewrite. So it was just a way to set money aside as a block allocation so that we could, kind of move forward and at least have some idea of how this would be distributed potentially.
That's under that assist vulnerable populations in the third category there.
Correct.
Supervisor Bader, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right time, but the seniors in the county have been underserved when it comes to getting hot meals. We can all agree on that. We've been trying like heck to get enough volunteers to get them 5 hot meals a week. That has been a huge struggle. We get them 3 hot meals a week, which, is something, but it's not enough, in my opinion. I think the ARPA money, part of it, could be spent very wisely if we contracted with a company to fill in the extra 2 days to guarantee that seniors get 5 days a week of hot meals. Now, there's going to need to be details worked out, but I strongly recommend to this committee that we look at this with a very serious undertone of helping our seniors. We're talking about Countryside on this, $1 million to Countryside. There's 34 seniors up there. I'm not against helping out our seniors up in Warrensburg, Countryside, but we have hundreds of seniors in this county that don't get a hot meal other than 3 days a week. Hundreds. And I don't think it's asking too much of this committee to allocate a dollar amount to contract a company to make sure that these seniors get 5 hot meals a week. So that's something I'm fairly passionate about. I think we all have parents at one time. Some are still with us, some aren't. But it's a very important, part of this whole package of helping underserved people, needy people, in this case, our seniors. So I don't know if this is the right time to throw that into the mix, but that's what I'm doing.
I think this is the time to talk about the concept. As you said, we would have to iron out details.
Correct.
Certainly. Supervisor or Chairperson Dennis,
Dennis will do.
thank you.
I hate to do this, but I agree with you.
I hate it worse than you, Dennis.
We've had a very difficult time in Lake George. We can't find a driver. We had a wonderful driver for a long time, and with COVID, when he was retired by COVID, he doesn't want to come back. We can't find anybody to deliver the meals, let alone prepare them. And it is a serious problem. And I would like to see you put together some facts and a game plan, Doug, and I'd gladly look at it.
Just 2 housekeeping things. So Wayne, I'm going to ask you, do you think that fits anywhere in these chunks of money that we have on the sheet? And if not, I think we should do it. We should put something in.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I was just going to ask, what's that dollar amount? Because we still have, even if this program went through, which I don't expect it, carte blanche to go through, but there's 3.3 million that is still out there. So
Right.
how much of that should we set aside?
I don't think we know. Supervisor Seaver?
Thank you. I think as we talked about this previously as a board, as a body, we talked about the need and directly related to COVID. And I didn't really hear that said today, but I want to make it clear that we aren't delivering 5 days a week because of COVID, because of the rising costs, because of not being able to find staff, because of the meal cost, because of now gas costs. So I think that it does fall within the ARPA categories. And I also think we did have proposals in front of us, and perhaps our county administrator can help us go back and look at some of those proposals. I know one was talking with Jeff Murphy, the sheriff over in Washington County, about a proposal on contracting. There were other proposals from other not-for-profits that were able to assist. And, you know, there's a way to do this, but also to go out and we're going to have to pay a premium, but it's a need. It's an immediate need. It's completely related to our seniors, to hunger, and to the lack of volunteers that we're able to have right now and gas prices.
Especially during COVID when they haven't had much contact either with people.
Right.
The personal touch and making sure that someone sees them every day
Yeah.
of the week, 5 days a week. I think that's really important.
My only point to bringing something back here, and I would appreciate if our chairs would consider it, we're very aggressive with this committee. I appreciate that. It was nice to be welcomed instead of putting it on hold. But I would also say perhaps meeting every other week would be a little more effective so that we did have time to review materials, so we can put a proposal together. Our own committees only meet once a month. So I think it's important that we stay focused, but realistically, everyone's volunteering their time and it's much appreciated. But
We're looking,
the
just on
appropriate
that, we're
time.
looking to have a meeting not for a couple more weeks, but we could push that out farther if we think we're okay once we get through today. I'm certainly open to that. On our draft allocation, do we want to set aside, I mean, in our priorities list, under assisting vulnerable populations, we certainly have senior services programmatic. Should we add a new line for that? And I'm just going to throw out a number of 500,000. And, you know, we're not going to forward anything to the Board of Supervisors today, obviously, but we're going to put that in our chart and make sure that we remember that's something we want to do. Okay,
I'm all for
go
it.
ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
should we bring in, have Dee help us on this to get us more defined? What do you think, Ryan? If you don't mind me asking, Chairwoman, Chairman.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, we can certainly ask. She'll have a very good idea what the current need is. And as Dennis mentioned, Lake George is in need of a driver. We have several other driver slots that exist in the Queensbury Glens Falls area. So existing need for sure. The question is going to be, does this generate additional need? We rely on volunteers to do this work, and does the fact that we're paying for it result in us losing volunteers or having existing volunteers want to be eligible to be paid for it? That's the X factor here.
Yeah, and we don't know that.
We don't know that.
And just like the EMS program, right, where EMS relies on volunteers, and then when they go to paid volunteers, paid employees, are they going to lose volunteers and so forth? That's the same type of scenario and same type of question. I think though that preliminary, we have Dee get in on this, maybe even Janelle. I don't know if health needs to be in on this equation or not, but definitely Dee Parks. And maybe we're suggesting as a group, maybe that because of the need is so strong, the 5 hot meals a week, maybe this will become something that we as the county should be funding.
Well, that'll be the issue, is if this results in a transition from a volunteer model to a paid model, that's not a model we'll get away from. And
Correct.
going forward, we'll have to be paying for transportation.
Correct. And just from preliminary, I'd be for that, but obviously that's what county resources are meant to do, help those who need the help. Okay, so thank you. So we're going to ask for Dee then, Ryan, to opine on this.
Yes.
And, okay, thank you.
We'll come back just like we've done in other cases.
Thanks.
Hold on. I see Supervisor Wild. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. And there's no arguing that these are great ideas in terms of what to use. My concern is if we give a certain amount of money over 4 years, what happens in year 5? right? So if these aren't building capability for them to be self-sufficient, then these organizations may struggle in year 5 to say, where are we going to get the money from? And we'll be on the hook in terms of Warren County and the taxpayers to try to figure out how to do that. So I just want to bring that up in terms of the proposals that come to us that say this shouldn't be for ongoing expenses. It should be towards building capabilities so that they can continue to provide these services in the future. So I just worry about that in the future. If we're going to be responsible to our constituents for spending money, I'd like to see that we make sure we are that responsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Agnew, did you want to say something?
Just a couple of things. I think it's a great idea to have Dee come in and hear from the Office of the Aging and exactly what the issues are. I think that'll help us make a more informed decision. Can we comment on some of the other things in here as well? I wanted to make sure that.
Hold on one second. Does anyone want to comment further on the seniors?
No, I had a comment previous to that for Wayne.
Okay, yes.
Wayne, you were talking about the Community Services Board?
Wait, Dennis, can we hold off on that before you go back to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have something on seniors?
No, I thought we just discussed that.
Okay.
The continuing cost.
Yeah, we'll
before
come
Mo-
back and look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yep.
On the program, I would agree from the perspective of a 2-year plan versus a 4-year plan with the hot meals. And I think 500,000 is probably going to be not sufficient based on the quotes that we had last year when we went through a bit of a crisis. So as long as this category, it's obviously flexible. We're putting money aside. We're not spending it. We're saying we're coming back. We're going to talk about this and we can adjust accordingly within those line items.
Yes.
Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Before I go to you, Dennis, Ray, okay, Mr. Agnew, you wanted to go to
Thank
something
you.
else.
And I apologize because I wasn't at the last meeting. I don't think I saw it in the minutes. From the survey, mental health was a big issue. Is that part of the health services 4-year allocation or is it?
Actually, I believe under Community Services Board, that organization covers mental health addiction services as well as
Okay.
other family services related to mental health.
Great.
So right now we have that blocked off at $1 million, but what we are saying is, this may only be a tranche of money for 2 years or 4 years, and we're going to have to figure out what we'll do with
I thought the
supporting
original
organizations after that time, after our ARPA money is gone, has been distributed.
The
Dennis?
original proposal was 250 for a year, per year for 4 years. Period. Done.
And I think the organizations have to know that we only have this money for 4 years. And it has to be distributed at the end of 4 years. Wayne and then Supervisor Sieber.
All right, the intent of this is that these would be for services over and above what they currently provide now. It's not to supplement their budgets, it's to provide more mental health services because we saw that as one of the priority needs. To provide more counseling services or, have the Community Services Board tell us where they would allocate those resources. But again, it's to deal with pandemic issues. And we hope that in 4 years, we're out of this, this is not a continuation that it's going to be part of the general fund. That's not my intent with this. It's like what's new and different or expanded services to deal with issues related to the COVID pandemic.
Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. In looking through the final guidance and to thinking about the fact we're also going to have broadband, some money coming in as it relates to broadband, which is going to be distributed direct through the state is what NACO had told us. We also have the opioid settlement monies that we've talked about addressing some of the unique characteristics of Warren County and maybe not so unique problems of drug addiction. So as it relates to these, the final guidance was really clear on not having that sustainable positions, or if you're going to offer additional services, to do that is going to require staff. And so while they're supportive of contractors, I do have a concern over 4 years. I think we may be setting up a situation that isn't sustainable or isn't successful to continue meeting those needs. In 4 years, I hope we're not here talking about COVID. I hope that we get a little more focused on the immediate need and crisis. And to me, that would be within the next 2 years. I would just, my own personal opinion, be opposed to a 4-year plan when we're talking about really trying to look at recovering and resiliency right now in our community.
On that note, one of the things that has been brought up is making sure that our not-for-profits who maybe haven't had a chance to submit something to the project solicitation, that they be, that money be set aside, so to speak, for that as well, because we do know that there are things like food insecurity that I don't see on the list necessarily being addressed immediately, to Supervisor Siebert's point. Do we want to specifically make a line item for something like that? I mean, and we need proposals to come to us quickly if we want to help in this in 2022.
I think one of the intents of using the community services board and allocating that money was that, me listening to stakeholders or Wayne listening to stakeholders as community planners, like our knowledge of their industry is pretty limited. So by getting someone that's in it every day to figure out where to spend that money, like that would be the vehicle to do that. So I think it's like, hey, set aside that pot of money and then we can go out and get those project ideas from there.
I mean, I agree with you. I also think though that there are other organizations besides the ones that I saw that Rob is already contracting with that do things different than he is, more.
Absolutely. I don't think we have to limit ourselves necessarily to community services board with that money.
Okay, right.
But there could be partner organizations that we don't have an existing relationship with, but why not work with them? I think, there's a whole network of people working on the same issues.
That's as we peruse that solicitation list that we've got, we'll see what pops up.
Okay. I mean, I would feel more comfortable if we set aside another line item for, I don't know what we want to call it, community assistance or homelessness, food insecurity. And maybe we only do 250 for this and try to get it out there this year, 250,000.
How are you going to do that?
I don't know yet, Dennis. Okay, but we're, like Wayne said, we have 3.3 million. Let's try to I want to get some big picture ideas that'll help us focus where we want to get this money going towards this year.
So that's not covered in any of these,
I don't think so. Yes, Beth.
well, I don't object.
Ms. Gillis.
I don't object to putting it on the list.
Okay, thanks.
I was wondering where childcare would fall, because we do have a couple of projects that were put in through the portal on childcare. So is that under the community service board?
Yeah.
No, so that might be an extra one. And then I also just want to know under local business support and other, I don't actually see anything for local business support. So maybe
I noticed that too.
whatever it is, just, you can just call it local business support and give it a dollar amount. But I didn't see anything in there for business.
I do want to, on the childcare, I really think that falls under workforce development, and our workforce development director is on the line to talk to us about some of the childcare proposals. Not that we need to take action today, but I think that it fits under that line item. Yes, Supervisor Siebert.
Just to the extent, I suppose, Liza, as you're talking about this, if you wouldn't mind touching on the programs that do exist, particularly through the daycare assistance program for families, even a family of 3 can earn up to $45,000 and receive full daycare assistance. And those funds are I just spoke with our commissioner, increased. They're being expanded. We meet a huge need already in Warren County. So there are resources out there to assist in income sensitive areas, but maybe it's something, and maybe Liza, this is something that we can get to with these funds, the gap of people that are working and what they're making and picking up where those programs are leaving off in your proposal. But I just wanted to make sure that was addressed, please.
Great. Okay. All right, leaving this aside, making a couple changes, knowing this is still draft. We're going to keep draft all over it. I'm sorry. Yes. Beth, did you have more? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say for childcare, one of the proposals was more about providers, like it's not that people can't afford the childcare, it's getting people to provide
do it.
childcare. So I want to make sure we hit both sides of that coin.
Okay, I think Liza will, hopefully. Yeah. Yes.
Just want to put out there, maybe other people got it as well, that Major Lloyd from the Salvation Army sent an email around today with some information, calling it a childcare desert. And
he's on with us as well today too. And so we'll call on him in a little bit. Yep.
Fabulous.
Supervisor Seaver.
Before we go on to that presentation, you're asking for what we don't see on here. And I know our treasurer is here today. And I was hopeful that we could have the discussion, one about local business support. I don't see that there. I think that's really critical. And again, maybe it is looking at a program for 2 years versus 4 and utilizing those dollars in an immediate way, but also premium pay. That has, I mean, for us to ignore the surveys that came through, it is not okay. We asked our community what they wanted to see done with ARPA dollars. And, you know, I think this was the committee it was supposed to be discussed in. I know the treasurer has some numbers, but not just as it related to county employees, but also an opportunity within the community. I'm told we're one of the very few counties that have not addressed this. And we see some eligible uses here under these funds. And, you know, our community needs to determine what their needs are. And if we're going to ignore what their survey results were, shame on us. And I think having uncomfortable conversations need to happen. And I'm hopeful that we'll have that dialogue.
Let me take that in 2 parts. The local business support. I think you sent around something, was it Ulster County? It was, do you know, do you have a proposal for a number, a dollar amount we could put in here for now, knowing that we might have to shift things around?
$1 million.
Okay.
And what is this for?
Local business support based on. I mean,
I know in Glens Falls, they did, I'm sorry. In Glens Falls, I believe they put out sort of like a grant program. It wasn't a loan program, I think. And people could apply, businesses could apply if they were having issues getting through the pandemic, and they were given ARPA money from the city. So we could look at what structure they put together. I think that's certainly a need.
And to your point, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are counties doing this already and doing it well, and we just need to look at them. I know, Ethan, you reached out to Saratoga. I happen to stumble on Ulster's, but NISAC can help us identify, and cities have also, I mean, to have Glens Falls have already, you know, done this opportunity for people in Glens Falls. I think it would be wise as a county that we look at this need, since individual municipalities, I didn't see that on that list that you proposed back to us being done in any one of our municipalities. So.
Okay, on the uncomfortable one, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're going to defer to the treasurer. And I guess I want to ask one thing, because there was early on in the pandemic talk of we could take ARPA money and we could send a check to every single person in the county.
We can't though. I don't think we can. And that I suggested that in the first meeting, that we take and cut it up and send a check to every county resident. And I was told ARPA wouldn't allow that. Is that correct, Mr. Treasurer?
That's correct.
Okay.
So Supervisor Seaver, on this, is your idea to provide premium or to discuss premium pay for county employees specifically?
Well, I think
Our employees.
if you're looking at the local business need and you're earmarking some monies there and some other types of not-for-profits, I think you might capture some of the individuals that had responded on the survey as community members. But there is a level of creativity that can come with those applications as it relates to people that were working at the grocery store, were working at the, you know, different places that they didn't have a choice, you know, and they did work through it. But we also have many of those employees here at our county, and it's been a continual ask from our employees. And I didn't realize until I spoke with our treasurer the other day that, I obviously take it at face value, and perhaps Ryan as our administrator can weigh in, that we're one of the only counties that didn't address such a need. And, you know, for the dollar figure that you provided to me and whatever calculation that you worked with your leadership team on here, it might be worth a discussion to this committee to bring them into the fold.
Well,
Treasurer Swan,
yes, I guess the ball.
go right at it.
Yeah. Basically, I've been a proponent of this since the beginning. Our employees that came to work every day, I feel should be rewarded for that, because they put their personal safety behind them and put the good of the county in front of them and came in. One thing I would like to say is I was here every day from the start to the finish, and I do not want any premium pay, okay? And I won't accept any, but the staff should have it. And depending on what you want to do, it could range anywhere from $390,000 to $800,000, depending on how elaborate or not elaborate you want to get with it. As far as other counties, yeah, we're one of the few in the state that has not done anything. And I guess part of that is my fault because and Ryan and I had a discussion about this in April of 2020, is because some of the counties started doing premium pay, Washington County and Saratoga County. And it kind of like, I pushed on this, that I was very concerned that I didn't know where we were going to go. My initial estimates showed that we figured that we were going to lose $10 to $12 million in revenue. And I didn't want to put us in a further hole by shelling out another $1 million to employees. That was me being ultra conservative. As it turned out, I was way off. We ended up breaking even basically due to some budget cuts. But, and now and there was a letter that I just received today that the CSEA sent to Ryan. I don't know if you've even seen it yet. Okay, I just gave a copy to co-chair Claudia, that the CSEA is, well, I would say demanding from the way the letter is written, that they should be getting compensated for the people that came to work. So
I remember that debate and it was really hard. We were very scared. We were trying to be cautious about what was happening in the county finances at the time. And, as we started digging into it, there was a lot of debate about, well, some employees came into the office because department heads told them to. Others were able to work from home, but they kept working.
Mhm.
So, and their department heads didn't make them come in. So it's almost like if we don't pay them premium pay because they stayed at home, well, you're punishing them for having followed their department heads' orders. So it's going to be hard if we go down this road, but I certainly think it's worth the uncomfortable discussion to figure out what to do. Administrator Moore?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. I had three, I might miss one. One that I just had in terms of that concern that we had with do you pay people who were home? The federal, the Treasury guidelines don't allow that. So they actually specify that if you're going to get premium pay, you've got to, it doesn't count for any time that you work remotely. And the other 2 points that I think we would need to make a decision as to the reference was made to grocery store employees. I think we would need to make a decision if we do premium pay, do you limit it to county employees or do you open it up also to the rest of the community? And that's an important issue that we would need to figure out. And the third is I would want to make sure we got a recent opinion from the comptroller as it pertains to FLSA exempt employees. That it may be a constitutional violation to retroactively compensate. And I would want to make sure that we get their opinion as to this, as to whether that falls under the same category.
Supervisor Beatty, I know you had your hand up before and I
Yeah,
skipped
I
you.
had one other idea, but this is a good discussion. So when this discussion on this particular thing is over, then if you'd call on me
Okay.
again.
All right. I think that it sounds like people want to look at it a little bit more and bring back more information to put into the proposal. As to the only county employees, I thought what Supervisor Sieber was saying was that businesses could potentially apply to us for grant money and then they can make the choice, if they had cashiers who they want to pay premium pay to, that would be on them. That would be their request to us.
Well, I think we would still have to administer that as a sub-grantee.
Okay. So some details to work out. Supervisor Sieber,
Just as-
and then we'll change gears.
Yeah, just as a next step to that, perhaps we could ask our treasurer to work with our county administrator and looking at what some other counties did relative to county and then relative to community members and those types of grant programs. Again, I think there's a lot of different models out there that are addressing this, but I would hate to be the county that went out and asked our community, what do you think? And we said, hey, listen, we're thanks, but no thanks. I think it's really important that we all reread the survey results and then recognize the spot that we're in now and be very fortunate for the spot we're in now and take up some of these other hard issues that we weren't in a financial position to do earlier. I coupled with this need and crisis and recovery. That's what ARPA's for.
I agree. Supervisor Beatty?
Yeah, I had another idea. I'm just full of it today.
Mm-hmm.
Gas prices are $4.50 a gallon. Now, this is way out of the box. Is there any way we can use ARPA money to I won't say reward, to subsidize every licensed county resident who has a driver's license valid driver's license in the county, some way to help mitigate the cost of the gas, either maybe a gas car, I don't know. I'm throwing this out there and I'm really spitballing this, but I'm going to first ask our treasurer whether legally, under the ARPA rules, we could even go down this road.
I'd have to go back and look, but I don't believe so. And the second part of that is, you know, the idea is a good one, but implementation would be almost impossible.
Well,
Because we don't have access to motor vehicle records. And I don't think.
Wait a minute.
How can that be?
Yes, we do. Mike, we got to have access.
I
to
don't.
more. No, maybe you don't, but I can get Pam Vogel in here. There's no way we do not have access to driver's license. People who have driver's licenses in
probably
Warren County.
45.
In fact, the Board of Elections has it because every driver's license now they have to send out a notice about the election and voting. So
But that's going to be 45 to 50,000 residents probably or more that have driver's licenses. I mean, that's the implementation of that is.
well, I mean, there's no question that you got to put in the effort and the hard works a lot of times for the tougher areas. But on the other hand, it could be a lot simpler than we think. We can get the driver's license names. That's not a hard ask. Trust me, that's not a hard ask. The second part is, I don't know legally though, if we can give them a gift card or a gas card or something.
Well, the other side of this, by New York state law, if we cut a check to anybody or any county money goes to anybody, they have to be a vendor. So every county resident that we would have to give money to, we would have to make them a vendor and give them a vendor number and get them a W-9 and the whole 9 yards.
I think that we could look into this. I think another option is this may be a state legislative issue to raise to our state reps. Supervisor Zieber?
You know, you bring up a good point. And when we formed this committee last year, it wasn't just to talk about how do we dispense money. This had to be about how do we respond as a county and as a community, which is why we asked for community members. We can pass on a resolution out of this committee to the full board and ask them to pass a resolution at our full board meeting, asking our state officials to look at how can counties and our state take a role in decreasing what we're seeing as a rising gas cost. And I know Supervisor Beatty's heard from constituents on this. I've heard from constituents, and we're all feeling this. This isn't a political or a partisan impact. This, whether you are Republican or Democrat or blank or whatever, you are feeling this impact, and you're feeling it at the gas pumps as a result of multiple things, but also as a result of COVID. So I would like to see some type of legislation come out of our full board. We did not meet this month in legislative and rules. We can pass on resolutions out of here. And I think calling on our state leaders to assist us and seeing where we can be part of a solution, even if it's a small solution, a small dollar amount, it's something. And I know that Supervisor Beatty had people reach out to him with proposals on this. And maybe at the end of our meeting today, we could talk about a legislative resolution potential, because we can.
Let's do that, because I am worried. I know Liza has a time commitment. And I think that we,
mind under that.
yeah, yep. All right. Okay, with that, Liza, are you ready? I don't want you to run out of time to tell us what you want to tell us. I'm really looking forward to everything that Ms. Ossendorf has to tell us about workforce development and the creative proposals. Go ahead.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. And thank you to the chairs and the vice chair and the whole committee for taking time on this very important task. And thank you for the invitation today. I did, Supervisor Bramer, invite Major Leo Lloyd, because one of the proposals is also that we're working together on some training programs. So I'm going to turn over to him in a little bit. So to first, since it's at the top of my mind, some of the things that Supervisor Beatty shared about transportation as well as about Meals on Wheels. Just so everybody knows, my office does provide supportive services in the form of gas cards to people who may need support with, getting to a training program or a job interview. And so maybe that's one solution in terms of kind of contributing to that initiative, particularly for our more lower income folks who struggle with affording gas, especially right now, even though we're all definitely struggling. So the majority of my proposals and requests to the ARPA committee for funding is really around training dollars. So my office is federally funded to support people with employment and training services, and we sponsor people through training programs. We are sponsoring people through CDL programs, LPN programs, KSACs, for mental health support, and really whatever is left in my budget at the end of the year is what I use for training dollars. So last year that was $35,000. This year it's $50,000. Currently sponsoring about 15 to 20 people through training programs, and we would love to sponsor more. These folks do have to meet income eligibility requirements, so they're either underemployed or unemployed. We are working with the city of Glens Falls with getting some of their workers in DPW the new CDL license requirements, and splitting the costs a little bit with the city and my office. So really, whether it's around training people through in-demand work industries, right? CDL drivers cover many in healthcare. We would love to be able to support more people through those training programs. And transportation as well, in terms of, let's say, some of the rural areas which don't have public transportation. I would love to recruit some people from those rural communities, sponsor them through CDL classes, and then get a shuttle going because they already in those areas because they already know the community and the roads. So these are just some of the examples. Childcare. It was mentioned earlier, yes, we don't have enough childcare slots. So it doesn't matter if you've got subsidized childcare, and there's a lot of money coming down to support families to afford childcare. But if there aren't enough slots, because I don't know if you guys are aware, Warren County lost about 50% of childcare slots since 2019. So it doesn't matter if families can't afford it, we don't have enough slots for them. And so working with Southern Adirondack Child Care Network and other partners, my office would help sponsor more people through recruiting and training with Southern Adirondack Child Care Network. And then we really have a plan for how we would support those startup businesses. In technology, I've already been working with or sharing information with Mike Colvin about what our tech needs are. Certainly we still have a technology gap for many people in our community. So I've kind of shared what I would like to see in terms of more of our residents having access to laptops and iPads for job searches and things like that. Wi-Fi printers, things like that will support our workforce. And really, bringing this into the 21st century and beyond a post-pandemic world. And then our youth. So yes, hopefully COVID is ending, but I do believe that the mental health impacts on our youth will be lasting for decades. And if we are not investing in our youth now, we will be paying for it later through social services and the justice system. And so the other request I submitted was that so I can hire more people to support our youth with our trades programs, with BOCES, with the school districts. My one youth counselor and my coordinator cannot do it all alone. We need more people to do that work, to engage our youth and make sure that they're staying in our area and that they're getting trained and pipelined into our in-demand industries. And the last thing I'll say, and then I would love to hear from Major Lloyd, and as well as any questions you guys have, is the proposal that Major Lloyd submitted for funding to support a new training program. And he'll be working with social services and my office to support people who've had barriers to employment. And this will allow them an opportunity to get some skills and some experience, but also could be an opportunity for the Meals on Wheels. And I think Major Lloyd, Salvation Army, fed more people during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, than any other organization. So he has proven that he's able to do that. And I'm gonna pause there because I've said a lot, and I'll see if I have any questions, but also would love for folks to get an opportunity to hear from Major Lloyd.
Thank you, Liza. Go ahead, Major Lloyd.
I have an emergency at home. I have to go.
Okay, bye, Wayne. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on today. They say you should never see sausage being made or laws being made, but this has been a treat for me to kind of be behind the scenes and see how you talk. It's been exciting. And as I've been listening, and I just want to assure all the committee members and anybody else that's listening online, I think that committee member Sieber made the point that we really need to be focused on, the survey results and what the community sees as needs. I've read through not just the survey results from this county, but from several other counties. And it's interesting, as you come around the whole capital region, how you start to see broad, themes come out, similar all over. As you were speaking earlier and I was a fly on the wall, I was grinning a little bit. I don't know if you can see my picture because a lot of what you were talking about, ironically, I've been working on for about 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. During the pandemic, we did, and a lot of you on this call helped us distribute food. And I think it was about 1,500 meals per day, 7 days a week was the amount of food that we distributed for 13 months. During that process, we came in contact with the Department of Aging, and they asked us to submit a proposal for Meals on Wheels. And it was a fast turnaround. And I said to them, really, what I'd like to do is think long-term about Meals on Wheels, because I think we have a long-term solution that can do a lot of good for a lot of people. I want to see senior citizens visited in their homes. I want to see 5 days a week hot meals. And I think we can do that through a workforce development program that helps marginalized folks get a guaranteed job start. Now, we're not talking about a permanent job. We're talking about a 3-month to 6-month job working in our Meals on Wheels program. To speak to some of the committee's concerns, I think what the Salvation Army brings to the table, and part of what I've been working on for the last 6 months, is to bring grants that are available now into this equation. We've applied for 3 grants. We've received 2. We're waiting on the 3rd that would help us fund the training program. And so I think what we would really need to get this off the ground is some seeds, some infrastructure money, just to develop the infrastructure, and then it could move on in perpetuity. Certainly, my business plan calls for a contract with the county for Meals on Wheels, but I don't think it's really over and above what you have budgeted now, with the exception of, again, building out the infrastructure. Now, how much work have we done? We've identified a building, 10,000 square foot building that's across the street from the Salvation Army. It's the former Rite Aid. We've had conversation with the city about that building. Their agreement to run this program, that the Salvation Army do it. The owner of the building is willing, Peter Shabbat, to lease me the building with the option to buy. And we partner with just about every agency in the county that would have a stake in this. So we're already working with Department of Social Service, helping folks who are on TANF for SNAP benefits, get employment hours and get job training. We're working with Liza's group. They would be part of this training program for the folks who would be referred to us through the county, to make sure that they got the proper training and that they were supported. The Salvation Army has a program called Pathway of Hope that wraps services around vulnerable populations. So it's fairly exciting to hear you talk about this, because I was concerned coming here today. I said, wait a minute, I'm going to be connecting Meals on Wheels to a program that I'm developing, and I haven't pitched this to the county yet. So I was kind of excited when I heard all you talking. Liza was texting me saying, Leo, I swear I didn't pay them to say these things that they're saying. So I think we can get it done, certainly within the parameters of some of the numbers that I've heard come out of here. I think seed money, we've asked for $600,000. And again, this is just to build up startup cost. And it's not just for the Meals on Wheels program. Somebody mentioned on this meeting that Glens Falls area, this area of Warren County where I am, is a daycare desert. Liza mentioned 50% of the daycare slots have gone away. Our building sets up really nice. We've met with Southern Adirondack Childcare. They've toured the building. We're in the process of putting together an application right now to open up a daycare here for about 50 slots. So we're excited about that. We have that funding, daycare desert funding that's in place. But I think the benefit of somebody like the Salvation Army partnering with the county is that we have funding sources and we're tied into funding sources and have donor bases outside of the county. So whatever you see, for us, we have the ability to run it in perpetuity. Not only that, but we're networked with every social service provider. I don't care if it's just a small food pantry, we're networked everywhere in Washington and Warren County. That network was so strong that when COVID happened and a lot of the small pantries shut down, we were able to almost overnight open up pantries inside of motels where people were stuck, and senior citizen high rises, we opened up pantries. And because we have such a vast network of volunteers, that's the other benefit that I heard this group speaking to. We're able to mobilize almost on a minute's notice hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. And we've been working with the United Way on strengthening that. And so when COVID first hit and people didn't have access to get to the grocery store, we were able to overnight deliver meals to folks and deliver folks everywhere in Washington and Warren County. And I mean everywhere. There was no remote location. And we had about 50 to 60 volunteers just like that every single day, 5 days a week. Some of you on this call may have been part of that team. So I think we have some exciting proposals for you on how to tie together some of the things that you're talking about here in a really innovative way. And I'm excited about doing that, because I think we can do a lot of good for a lot of people and really marry some of these ideas and concepts that you can have. One last thing that I would say about food insecurity is I don't know if you really need to allocate a lot of money for food insecurity. The food insecurity network is pretty tight. I mean, we're tied in with the food bank. There's a network of food pantries up here. We're ready to ramp up on a minute's notice. I think you could see that during the pandemic. However, the prices are going up, so maybe you want to, think about doing something with your social service office, on some kind of a subsidy, or working on if somebody's needs a special allocation. But I would just say, I don't know that you need to allocate a ton of money for food insecurity, because that vehicle is very well formulated through the food bank network in America. And when needed, and during the pandemic, I think you saw this, that government agencies step in and we get the food to the people. So I think that is maybe one thing that you can minimize on your list or check off. So hopefully you're excited about hearing this and seeing more of a proposal from us. But I think we can get it done on, for a price tag that's a lot less than some of the numbers I heard thrown around today.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear your excitement about being able to serve so many people. And I can speak from firsthand knowledge about how quickly you were able to ramp up volunteers and distribute food in the early part of the pandemic. It was really amazing. I mean, one of my favorite memories from the early pandemic is that Great Escape, when you had people, it seemed like overnight volunteers came out of the woodwork, and we were shuffling so many cars through that particular little tiny parking lot. It was amazing. So I'm sure there's going to be questions. We have time for questions. And Liza, I know you have to leave in about 15 minutes. Is there anything you want to add, Liza? You had a lot of information about the training and transportation technology serving the youth. I know that I think you put into the project solicitation form proposals for all of those things, in addition to the partners that you had with Salvation Army, Southern Adirondack Childcare, and Crandall Library was someone that you had partnered with. So I think that we're going to want to hear more specifics about Major Lloyd's proposal. Is there anything else you want to?
No, I'm just happy to answer any questions. The Crandall Library proposal is really around technology, getting access to technology for our community. So I feel like we may end up, having some checkout practices and options at the library as well as through my office. So I think in that way, we'll be able to meet more people's tech needs.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Any questions from the committee members? Yes.
Hi, Liza. It's Beth.
Hi.
Do you have an idea of how many people you have waiting to put through a training program if there were additional dollars put into that?
So let's see, I mean, every week I usually review some individual training applications, and I have an employment counselor whose sole responsibility is helping people through that process. We really make sure they have some skin in the game, that they can commit to training. So I don't have people waiting now because really, as they come across my desk, if I agree that this person will be successful and this program has done the homework that we ask of them, I sign off and approve those. But with more funding, what I would do is I would market it bigger because my federal dollars cannot be used for marketing. We would get rid of some of the income eligibility because not all people who need training programs are unemployed people. Some of them want to be promoted at their job, right? And we need to retain our workers just as we need to recruit our workers. So I would really do some of those things that my federal dollars do not allow me to do to serve more people. And then I think maybe we can focus more on some in-demand industries too. We know healthcare and CDL will continue to be, but maybe there's some other industries like education that we would want to support as well without having to focus on income eligibility. I hope that answers your question, Beth.
Yeah, thanks.
I feel like the marketing piece, we could get you dollars for that right away, even if it comes out of general fund. Any other questions? Yes.
Just to take it to the next step then, Liza, if we're not prepared today to come out with a dollar figure that can immediately help with some marketing needs, can you come back in 2 weeks and can we have some figures in front of us? I mean, how do we proceed so that we can assist? I have some questions about some federal and state dollars for that, which I'll ask you offline, but as it relates to marketing and trying to get that need out there and awareness for people to create the daycare environments, particularly up north. I mean, what can we do staying focused on immediate needs?
Yeah, I shared with Supervisor Bramer last week that I really felt like immediate needs were around mental health and nonprofits and childcare. Workforce stuff, I can continue to do the work that I'm doing right now. Workforce stuff can be short-term and long-term funding to support some of those projects. We did receive a small amount of money from Glens Falls National or Aero Financial for marketing, which was really nice in their community giving. And we're still trying to figure out, do we want to print more materials and how we want to use that. But I think that does require a little bit more thought. So I appreciate you asking me to think about what else we would do for marketing. We're also blessed that we have Don Lehman to do a lot of free quote unquote free marketing for us, right? Publicizing our opportunities and programs. But I think we can be a little bit more strategic and give that some more thought. So I will do that. Thank you.
On the childcare though, Liza, and the Crandall Library, I feel like they put in, and I can't pull it up in front of me, they put in specific proposals for, reasonable dollar amounts that you've already reviewed those. Do you feel like the committee could move those forward today?
Absolutely. And I always feel like Southern Adirondack Child Care Network can use funding and do more with it. They can reach more people. They can help recruit and train. They can help current providers. So I feel like that can be an immediate need to be addressed because they're the experts who've been doing this work. So they're the childcare gurus that I work with.
Hey, Ethan, do you think you can pull those up for us?
I can't pull it up on this computer, but on page 3 of the project proposals that were sent out for the meeting, you'll see the description of the project, which is a partnership with Crandall Library.
Oh.
Page 3 of 54.
Page 3 of what?
Page 3 of page 54. It's on an email attachment sent out.
Oh, from
I
today.
didn't print out the 55-page document for everyone.
Okay.
Saved a couple trees.
Well, it's actually, we should be supporting our regional paper economy.
Oh,
Forestry industry.
That would do it.
More. But yeah, page 3 of the ARPA projects from Warren County website as of 3/8/2022.
that you sent out this afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay, project. 2, 3, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, so the request there was $30,000.
And this is basically for laptops and things like that people could check out and borrow.
Correct. The technology gap, was brought to the surface during the pandemic, but it has not ended. It's still one of our greatest needs with people needing support with access, learning how to use technology, resume development. We do a lot of that, but sometimes that work isn't limited to 9 to 5, right? Or 8 to 4. People need to be able to do that work when it's convenient for them.
Okay, and then I want to look at the Southern Adirondack one too. Go ahead.
Can I ask?
Supervisor Seaver, yes.
Thank you. Liza, just to that point, can you define how they are looking at rural? I like that it's more than just low income, but with what's the parameters around the rural definition? And then also, how will this be, any money that goes out of ARPA has to be obviously be tracked and reported back. Are you taking, I hesitate to ask you to take on that responsibility, knowing that you're one of our busiest departments right now. And in the same way that we're looking at planning with perhaps some additional dollars to manage some of these, to the extent that there has to be some support there, I think we should be talking about it. A lot of these things are coming through your department, and I do have a concern about how technical it's almost like having all these grants, right? So I just want to see your comfort level with that as well.
Yeah, I think it's necessary to invest in more people to work in my department. And while some of that could start from ARPA money, I'm not concerned that long-term after 4 years that we would struggle with finding ways to support that, because I think the need will always be there. And I think we have some other options too in terms of budgeting and also making use of grant opportunities. Regarding your question about rural, I wasn't sure if that was about for childcare, technology, or in general our services. I wasn't sure what your question was referring to.
May I just
Yes.
answer? Thank you, Chairwoman. Just that under the application for the library, it's, and I assume you put this in on their behalf, but it just identifies rural citizens and low income citizens. And, I'm not in any mad rush to miss any detail or to move too quickly on any of this if it can wait. But at the same point in time, the marketing seemed something that was pretty clear cut and would fall under our regular county reporting requirements. So.
Got it. So yeah, I think what we see and what the library sees is that people will come out of the woods down to the library to use the computer, and they've been on, to my knowledge, 1 hour time limits. And that, if updating a resume or job searching can usually go beyond an hour. And so that's why we needed the more technology with laptops and iPads. But I think the definition of rural varies depending on what definition you look at by states or grants. But I don't know. It's not just rural either. We have people in Glens Falls who can't afford Wi-Fi, right? And so they'll go to the library. to use it. So I don't want to say it's just for our rural citizens. It's also for people in Glens Falls and Queensbury.
Do you want to make that a motion?
I don't know how the committee feels. I'm happy to make that as a motion with that change, though, removing the, just leaving the technology gaps that have been a barrier to educational and employment services. I think that what we traditionally thought of someone as low income probably isn't what we think of anymore. And I think that there's multiple challenges that we need to be sensitive to. So I applaud the work that you've done on it, but I, again, will bring up the reporting requirements, because if that falls onto Liza, that's a domino effect, and we need to be thinking about supporting resources within that department, just like we are planning, that we're talking about here today, I believe, in the agenda.
Mhm.
So that's my concern. And I don't know if it's the treasurer's or not, but
Yeah, the mechanics of how this all works, yes.
And I know Wayne had to leave, but when he and I spoke last week, he had some ideas as well about the reporting. And so maybe we could circle back to him.
Do you think that that's a barrier for us making a motion to move forward with the Crandall Library request for 30,000 with the changes that Supervisor Sieber made to their proposal?
I don't, but you guys read more and know more about the reporting requirements than I may know, or that I recall from what I've read.
I think by the time we get to the board, we'll have it ironed out. What for this and for these other ones that hopefully we're going to talk about today too. Is there a second
I'll
to
second.
that proposal? Thank you.
Madam Chair, Mike?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Question for Liza. Liza, are there other programs, other communities that are doing similar things with this technology? And I'm asking because, there's got to be limits in terms of what can be used with these devices and the like, because they are really focused on job hunting or improving their skills. So I'm just curious if there are those elements in here.
Yes, other job centers have used our WIOA dollars, the federal grant money, to actually purchase people laptops or Chromebooks as like they would a book, right, for a class. But I personally would rather have a supply for people to check out rather than giving away technology.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah,
I will support this.
I will too, personally. I'm allowed to say that as chair.
All
All right, I'm going to call the question on this one. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Please say no. Abstentions? That carries. Dennis, does it carry?
Carried.
Okay, we did something.
Yeah, we got more to do.
I think we need to hear a little bit more about the Southern Adirondack Child Care Network. That is in your packet. It's on page 16, I think. And we can ask, sadly, Liza to come back on that one too. Okay, but I think that these are really important things that we should be moving forward with as quickly as we prudently can.
And Supervisor Bramer, I'm sorry. Before I run off, I think Lynn Sickles is who you really want to bring back to talk about childcare. She was unavailable today at 3 o'clock, had another commitment, but she's really the person. And I'll just support her work with recruiting more people to the field of childcare. But really, she's the person you want to ask your questions to.
Understood. Thank you. Yes. Anyone else for Liza before she runs off?
I do.
Yep.
Hey, Liza, just before you go, is the marketing dollars that you were referencing within this allotment of 112,000, or that would be separate and apart?
Yeah, I think that would be separate and apart. But however, I mean, you could include it because let's say we have more funding for training. We're obviously going to need to market that, right? That we have available funding for certain training programs. So, I mean, it's either or. We could find a way to do it without it, or we could do it with it.
Yeah, I'd just be interested in seeing that marketing piece come back to the committee for a proposal next time we meet and help you in that area so that we can dovetail on this.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for Major Lloyd? Before you're certainly welcome to continue eavesdropping on the behind the scenes discussion. or if you need to go, that's fine too. Thank you to both of you. Bye-bye, guys. Okay, all right, so we went out of order, but let's go back to 2B, which is the presentation of detailed spending proposals. I know Wayne had to go. Is anyone ready besides Wayne to present these? Yeah, Administrator Moore.
Sure. Number one in 2B, and this is part of this is included in a handout that was emailed earlier, and I believe we have printed copies as well that Ethan passed out. I have a printed copy in front of me, but I'm not putting my hands on it right now. But I had my other version. So this resolution was adopted last year, Resolution 453 of 2021. And it hit a number of county departments. These were requests, equipment requests that would have been in the 2022 budget. But we instead decided to purchase them last year and remove them from the budget when we were in the process of balancing the budget. As I wrote in the project description, the items on here that were most related to COVID, where we had $60,000 to replace 3 VMS boards, one of which was in DPW, 2 of which was in the sheriff's department. And these were essentially burned out due to COVID-related messaging, whether it was public health messages or vaccination opportunities, et cetera. There was $4,245 associated with fitting up expenses for fitting up the boardroom for remote meetings, virtual meetings, and $2,650 for supplies utilized to benefit countryside residents. Those are the ones I think probably are the most closely related with COVID, but I put, as requested, I put the entire dollar amount of the entire resolution in for consideration.
Okay. Is there a motion to bring this to the floor for consideration by the full board eventually? Yes, Supervisor, Co-Chair Dickinson, Supervisor Thomas. Discussion.
So what was the bottom line here? Wait, what is it?
251,580.
Oh, yeah. I got
Is that right, Ryan?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, it's Mike.
Yep. Go ahead.
I'm just curious if our budget officer can give us an update on how much ahead are we on plan with Warren County's budget? Because we've received significant amount of sales tax money. And I don't believe this is an investment that should come out of Arpa. I think it's, if the general fund can handle this, I believe that this should be covered under general fund dollars.
Supervisor Wild, would you mind responding? If you have a, sorry, my apologies. Look, we all get each other's names wrong. Budget Officer Thomas.
As far as sales tax, the year hasn't been closed, but we were up, I think about 10 million at the end of 2021. So half of that's 5 million. So what the fund balance, if you had 5 to 26, what, got 31?
So in essence, we could afford this.
I don't think that's the
Sure,
point of this, Mike.
I'm sorry?
I don't think that's the point of this. The point of this is to spend this money as outlined, and this is one of the things we can spend it on. Whether we could spend something else on it is totally irrelevant.
Well, my point is we could spend the money on this, and I understand that, but is that something that, just to coin a phrase, is that something that our children would appreciate us spending this money on? This is a $12 million windfall, so to speak. That it's a generational type of funding. And I always look at it this way, right? We have the money. We have more money than we anticipated because of sales tax. And this should be more of a generational move instead of spending things on what the county can afford to spend on. But that's my position I've had many times, and I'll continue to bring it up to the irritation of probably a few of you guys. But that's just the way I feel.
Well, we're here to debate it, and I think a lot of us have differing opinions on some of these things as to whether or not we use COVID money, the ARPA money, or we use the general fund money that we are thankful and grateful that we did better than we expected, as our treasurer told us earlier. I was gonna call the question. Do you want to? Go
May I
ahead.
make a
Yes.
comment on this?
Mhm.
I feel somewhat responsible to make a comment on this, and I'll say why. I'm going to respectfully disagree with my colleague from Queensbury, our supervisor at large. I'm going to agree with our supervisor from Lake George. I think it's incredibly important that during last year, when we looked at where those holes were, where we could cover the gaps, where we could respond in crisis, these all were those types of needs. And we very carefully took a look at what that budget looked like during a time where we were many times very scared of what the balance was going to be at the end of the year. To that point of, will our children be proud of us allotting dollars towards these types of needs? When I think about the Sheriff's 911 Center and a child who calls 911 and needs a response, yes, I think they will be happy we spent the money. When I think about if we are able to work remotely and Zoom and have meetings during a pandemic, I think about members of our board whose grandchildren and children were very grateful for the opportunity for us to communicate while people were sick and family members were sadly dying. I do think that there's an opportunity here to show our children and to show our constituents that we did take a look at the hard topics. We allotted the money for it. We went through a process through the board. We debated these issues and we said these are related to the pandemic. And that is exactly what the ARPA funds were here for. These expenses were incurred within the year of a pandemic. And I think it's very important that we continue to support that type of resiliency and recovery. And I would ask for your support in this resolution of 453 here today.
I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
And any abstentions? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to check on everyone's time. If we go through these, it could take a little time. Is everyone okay to hang it in? Because I could skip. All right, let's keep going. Number 2, airport change order. Go ahead, Ryan.
The DPW superintendent is here for any questions, but I'll do my best. This was a referral from the facilities committee. There was Plank Construction working on the snow removal equipment building. There was a change order in the amount of $68,307.92 associated with cost escalations that have come about during COVID. Subsequently, there's been an additional change order. This was not discussed at the facilities committee from La Corte Electric. That is for $31,748.60. Again,
So now we're looking at $100,057.
yes, $100,057.
Is there a motion to bring that to the floor for discussion?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Discussion?
Madam Chair, not to belabor a point, but I feel the same way on this one.
Okay. And again, and go ahead, Supervisor Thomas.
I sort of understand the increase in steel. I guess you can make the case that that was due to COVID, but the electrical, I'm having difficulty with that.
Kevin Hajos is going to come to the podium so we can hear him, please.
I'll come to the podium.
Thank you.
I understand that you understand it was steel, but it happened across the board with every material that's out there, whether it was aluminum, steel, plastic. I actually have an article in front of me that I thought would help kind of discuss this, but the bottom line is this says that a wide range of inputs contributed to the more than 20% jump in the cost index for most products. The price index for steel alone went up 112% over the 12-month period. Plastic jumped 35% over 12 months. Fuel jumped 5.1%. Aluminum jumped 24.8%. So it was across the board. It wasn't just steel. It could have been steel, plastic, aluminum, any material out there. Supervisor McGowan, I can verify that even wood products, a normal piece of plywood was $8, went to, $48. So it was across the board that they had these increases. And again, it was due to escalation of cost during COVID.
All right, let's call it. I vote however you want, everybody on the committee, our community members. I know it's a little odd, but go, yes, Supervisor McGowan, before I call, last call.
Well,
last-
thank you. I enjoy sitting here. But I am not on the committee, but I have been reviewing. I asked Kevin to give me the quotations, in viewing it. And yes, I myself in my own business felt the increase of prices and still the pinch. And now the gas is even a killer. So I guess, I actually, I believe I sit on this, I don't want to say believe, I know I sit on this, and I made the resolution to send it over in the ARPA. Thinking because it was due to the increase, but after sitting here today and before and reviewing and seeing this, this is only $12 million. And boy, it's amazing how fast that money can go. Now, this was a small match, wasn't it, Kevin?
No, so this project originally started off as a 90% FA, 10% county. But when COVID hit, FA came back and said they would fund 100% of this project. So it was entirely the 2.57 million funded by FAA. This change order, though, they will not fund. They said they would not allow it, and they have that in their contracts. In fact, there's a couple lawsuits with the FAA right now because they will not fund any type of price escalation. But I mean, it was a small, I think we figured it out to be 3% of this project for the 68,000, another, 1.5% change order for the courts. It was minimal, but again, FAA will not fund this cost.
So 10% of the $2.2 million.
Yeah, $250,000, give or take, that we would have had.
So we would have had. So I guess, I sent it over here, and now I'm kind of thinking, we do have it in our other funds with the increase. We are going to have to give that 10% anyway. So is this something that we want to do, is to take it out of the ARPA fund, or should the county absorb? So that would be up to the committee. I just thought I'd bring it up. Thank you for your time.
Yes, it is a difficult task, and that's what we're trying to figure out. And I think that an idea that I heard, and it came from Supervisor Hogan, who's not able to come here today, is that perhaps the Finance Committee needs to take up a look at a spending plan for the $10 million so that we can figure out what we're doing with that above our reserve that has to be held according to the treasurer's rules and our
Actually,
comptroller.
With that additional 10 million, we just cleared the 16% or 2 months worth of operating expenses. So the 30 million is basically where we should be.
So we're now.
Hold on, right. Wait a minute. So are you saying basically you do not think that we have anything above and beyond a reserve that we like to hold?
Yes, we do, but we don't have the amount that, how do I say this? We should have at least 16 or 17% of our total budget in reserve.
Mhm.
And if you do that, that comes out around 30 million, 29 something, okay? And the figures that the budget officer quoted are close enough, the 31 million. It's not going to be that exactly. So, I mean, we can afford to take some of that money, yes, but I am steadfast in the opinion that we need to keep 2 months worth of operating capital. I mean, it takes over $10 million. Well, actually, it's about $14 million a month I need to pay the bills to keep the county going. Okay, 2 months is 28 million.
Ray?
If I'm not mistaken, this vote would just simply be the committee asking the board to look at this, right? So it will be discussed again, and then you could make a decision there. Is that not correct?
The mechanics of it are that if the board gives us the thumbs up and it goes on to the full board, it will be debated whether or not the full board wants to use ARPA for the 100 and change thousand. But I will tell you that if the board sees it coming out of committee, many members will defer to the committee's debate on the issue. Yes, Supervisor Beatty.
To summarize, Treasurer Swan, basically he's saying we're not as flush as we think we're flush.
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is, yeah, we're 10 million ahead, but it only puts us at the 16 million or 16%, which is a 2-month reserve. So we're not just swimming in money like
Well, I think
maybe
what
some
Frank
people
said-
think.
I'm sorry.
And that's a very excellent point you made, Treasurer Swan, because we're under the misnomer, some of us, that there's money coming out of the walls here, and there isn't. We're just put ourselves in a safe position at 16% reserve, and that's a safe position. But that's not a, let's go buy an island position. So, we got money,
I do
funny
think
money,
we're-
you can buy an island.
We're not going to be buying an island, Frank.
Okay, good.
I was going to say, but you please tell her.
All I was gonna say is that, it's 10 million, but you have to remember half of that goes back to the towns, so it's actually 5. Is what it is.
Good point.
Approximately.
Well, wait a minute, Frank, though. Someone said 31 million. Our general fund is roughly at 31 million right now.
Well, that's where we think it's going to be, okay? Just based on what we've gotten in revenue and where we were last year, okay? I don't have an exact figure.
I think we were around 26 million fund balance going through 21. So-
Right.
So if you take and add 5 to
If
that.
you add 5 million to it, you're at 31,
31.
which is reasonable. We're going to be in that ballpark
It's
somewhere.
around there.
I mean, coming out of a pandemic, to say that we are on solid grounds is way better than we thought we were going to be.
Oh, yeah.
But we're only looking at about $2 million of, I'm going to say flush versus this $10 million extra that keeps getting thrown around. We don't really have $10 million to throw around towards
No, because
expenses.
it's only 5 million in actuality, because half of that 10 million goes to the towns.
Right.
and the
Okay.
City.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, we did just do the multi-year forecast. I pulled up the agenda and we ended 2020 at 26.832 million. And it's debatable where we end up last year. We don't know yet, but definitely low 30s, 30, 31, 32, somewhere in there is probably where we land.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Hold
yeah.
on, Mike. I've got Beth here first. Hold on.
I just wanted to ask Kevin a question. Is this the kind of thing that's going to keep going up and up and up, or is these two are it and the project
Well,
done?
the SRE project at the airport is done, but I can tell you that we've been taking in bids, and over the last probably 2 years, we've seen bids increase. In fact, I just got bids in for South Johnsburg Road, and we're $750,000 over the engineer's estimate. So it's going to continue to happen, and with fuel and gas prices rising, it's only going to get worse.
On that lovely note, yep, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thanks. A question for our treasurer and our budget officer, maybe jointly, and also one for Kevin. Let's go back to Kevin first. Kevin, this 10% match was budgeted, right? So it's already allocated a certain budget code. Is that correct? So we're planning on spending this money.
I'll have to go back and look at that, Supervisor Wild. I don't recall when we set up the capital project that we had budgeted the 10%. Because I think that the time that we had received the indication from FAA, I mean, we knew in the beginning when we started the design of the project that it'd be a 90-10, but I think when we got allocated the construction funds, then it went to 100%. So we might not have had that budgeted in there, but I can check tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. That's fine. And then, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I've heard a number of numbers and I'm just looking for clarity. So we do have $5 billion more in sales tax. How much above our reserve do we have that we could apply to some of these funds without dipping in to our reserves?
Do you want to answer that, Mike? I think
I don't have an exact figure. My estimate would be $3 or $4 million, maybe.
Okay, so there's $3 or $4 million, just to paraphrase, there's $3 to $4 million that we're above where we anticipated we would be, that we could apply some of this money towards and maybe divert some more ARPA money towards longer term investments and for things like the meals program or whatever else. But we do have the ability to move some of this money around and not take ARPA funding for it. So I've got my clarity. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Is there anyone else? Yes.
I just want to be really cautious with this vote, that this doesn't become a slush fund type of account that, to your point, Kevin, that if it's going to keep happening in other areas, that it's got to go to county services and the county needs to find a way to meet that need. I understand the direct COVID relation and I'm not thrilled over it. But based on what we talked about at committee the other day and this last minute change, I'm never thrilled on. So chances are I'll just abstain. But the bottom line here is that same argument I would make with Countryside when we get down to it, that this change took place in a project that we currently have going as a direct relate to COVID. I can see the stretch, but I don't think that this board should get in the habit of referring things over to this ARPA committee and asking it to act like a slush fund. There's earmarks here for some really innovative things that can help our community. And if this is a one-time request, then I would be inclined to support it, but not if we're going to keep coming back and utilizing it. If you want to speak to that, Kevin.
I think you should, please.
Yeah, and let me back up a little bit. I'm not asking that, like some of these other projects that are coming in above and beyond. I'm not asking for ARPA money for that. For me, it's a decision for all of you to make of whether or not use ARPA funding. I'm just telling you the downfalls or the pitfalls that I have. As far as the South Johnsburg one, we've already gone back to the AGFTC and the MPO to get basically more money into the federal highway to cover the cost of that one. So I'm not expecting to come back. And believe me, I don't believe this is a slush fund.
Yeah.
Could we,
Ethan.
because I think that, the project obviously has merits and there's a clear connection between, change order and the increase of price due to, workforce materials. So yeah, it seems like a good project. But to the idea of the slush fund and the precedent that it could set, would it make sense to just allocate a block of money for projects like this? That way we sort of have a set limit on how many of these kind of projects that we do with the ARPA funding versus just sort of every meeting we can go through and do another project like this, because I anticipate we're going to have a lot more of this. So why not just set aside a certain amount that we do for projects like this and then go from there, as opposed to just, because it could, as you say, turn into the slush fund. We're just like, hey, project after project. But we set a cap on it that gives us the flexibility to respond to things like this, but not completely overdo it.
Dennis.
It's first off, we have a list here and we only came to $3.3 million. So we've got money here for these other projects that we're all concerned about. This is a specific request for a specific amount of money, one-time deal. It falls under the auspices of ARPA. Money out there and let's move on.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be like, do we set aside, $1 million or $2 million, say this kind of stuff, or just go for it?
No, I wouldn't do that. Let people come in and ask us specifically for whatever it is they want.
After hearing what Kevin had to say about this, he doesn't want to make this a habit. I think it'll be incumbent on some of us supervisors to hold each other accountable, not to just come here for future use like this. I think I see, if I may, this as a one-time deal.
Madam Chair, Mike, one more time, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Supervisor McGowan, you mentioned, I thought I heard something in your voice that said you might want to recall this referral to ARPA. Were you considering that?
I'm the one that referred it. I believe I'm the one that made the motion to refer this to ARPA because it was mainly due to an increase due to the pandemic and the delays in the price of the steel and everything. So, I thought that would be a good place for it to come because this is definitely for the pandemic. But now that I've got more involved with the ARPA and watching the amount of money that we're allocating for everything and trying to make different pockets for the future, I was just concerned, today hearing, good thing for, for our citizens, for Meals on Wheels and, all the things that we want to do for this, with the ARPA money, which is really for the citizens. And this, and I more or less think of the SRE building as a, more of a county asset. So, I just thought I'd bring this up. I'm in the middle. It'd be up to the committee to make the decision. I just thought I'd throw that out there because as more information comes into me, my mind was turning, which sometimes does.
Thank you both, Brad and Madam Chair.
Of course. All right, I don't want to cut off any discussion, Dennis. I know we need to keep moving though. Ready?
Yep.
Any further? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
I believe
Yep.
did that carry? To you, Dennis, I believe that carried.
We have one loud no, but I don't know why the rest of us.
All right.
Sorry, windy over here.
I'd like to make this next one a little easier, if you don't mind, Administrator Moore. I know that your request is to have money available. Do you think that we need to do that though as a resolution today? Or
No.
now that we've set it aside on the spending distribution draft plan, we have the money. I think the committee, there's consensus there that if we needed that money, we could get it to you quickly.
Yeah, and I think in terms of our stockpiles right now, we're in pretty good shape with these supplies. It's just the reason for putting this in is God forbid we have another strain or we have, another situation where we need supplies and we can't source them somewhere else. But it is a what if. It's a what if.
Okay. All right. Is everyone comfortable with that? We'll just leave this one kind of pending for now. Pending on our list, number 3. Okay. Okay, number 4. This is, Ryan, I'll let you take it away because I know you've done a lot of work since last time to get us an actual figure to back this up.
Sure. Yeah, the department heads put a lot of work into it. I haven't heard back from everybody yet. And Wayne also, much to my appreciation, was trying to work to put some costs behind those requests. I have the name of the equipment that department heads would invest in if we go down this road. I don't necessarily have all the costs, but Wayne thought that as he continues to work on this, he thought it was very possible, if not likely, that we'd be over $250,000 in this investment.
So is there do you recommend us making a moving today?
I do. I think if this is an important investment in the county's resiliency, and that's really the whole point. It's if we ever are in this situation again where we're under lockdown or whatever, and we discovered what worked and what didn't work so well. And these investments would allow us to provide services in a more efficient manner in the event that county operations were impacted again the way they were in 2020.
I'll move that.
Okay, so Dennis is moving number 4. Is there a second for discussion? Thank you. You got that, Amanda? Wait, okay, thanks. Discussion. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this just an allocation or are we actually requesting the distribution of these funds from the full board?
We would be, this is a motion to put it for the full board to distribute the funds.
Thank you. Same position as always.
Okay, Supervisor Sieber.
My follow-up to that question would be for our county administrator, and it's not just setting aside the funds, this is then purchasing the equipment
Yes.
in 2022.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Beth.
If you look under employment and training, there's the 30,000 for laptops and iPads for job seekers. That's what we already did, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
That one we
That would then
already,
be again,
this is different laptops,
different stuff.
different stuff.
Different group.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, no, it says for job seekers
Yeah.
though. If you.
Oh,
if you
I'm
read
sorry.
it, Yeah,
Page
it's not
9.
for her employees.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was not picking up what you were putting down. Where? What page?
Middle of
Page
page 9.
9.
Middle of page 9. Oh, boy. Ryan?
What's page 9? I'm sorry.
Under employment and training, it says laptops and iPads for job seekers, 30,000. That seems like a duplicate request to what we just put through.
Yes, it may, are you're referencing my list, my detailed list that I sent out? to the
Yes.
committee?
Yeah.
Yes, that one probably is a duplicate.
Okay, so can we amend that to take that off of there?
Well, I think we can come up with a 30 somewhere else.
I'm sure you can,
Yeah, there's a lot of awaiting responses.
just so that we're not using it
Yeah,
twice. Okay,
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Is everyone understanding what's happening? Okay.
So can I speak to process? What we will do is we will firm this up with the IT director and all the department heads as to what exactly they need, what the cost is. We wouldn't come to the Board of Supervisors for a budget amendment to support that until that's all firmed up. You're essentially giving an upper bound as to what you're willing to support now.
An upper bound of 250,000,
That's
right?
right.
Yes, okay. To spend on equipment. Yeah, given the green light.
So Madam Chair again.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm curious, do we really need to get this equipment now? Or can we just put it in a reserve for the future for just in case? Or is it because it's ARPA funds, we need to spend it right away?
Yeah, we can't put ARPA funds into reserves.
I've heard from department heads they still need equipment to deal, just on Zoom meetings and stuff like that.
I understand the need. I'm just curious if we can possibly delay the actual spending until it's apparent that we really need the full amount. Like we're doing with some things that are 4 years out, right? We're going to do 4-year distributions or 2 years, as Supervisor Seaver suggested. Can we do the same with some of this funds? I just wonder whether we really need all of it right away.
This is a need now, Mike.
Let me have Ryan say,
Yeah, we wouldn't spend money that's not appropriated. It's not in the budget to be spent. So that's why I made the point I did that we need to we need to nail this down as to what each department really needs with the IT director, and then come to the Board of Supervisors for an appropriation, which could then be spent. So once we appropriate it, we're pretty certain we're going to spend it right away.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Sieber.
I think it's important that we look at this as almost a continuum of care. I know that's the wrong word, but a continuity of our plans and our business that we conduct here at the county. Last year, we had a stark reality of how much these things cost to operate remotely. And I hope we've learned some lessons from COVID that I don't see it in here under the Board of Supervisors, but I do hope that we're going to continue to Zoom to the extent that we're able to communicate, particularly with the rising gas prices, but to be able to loop in our up north supervisors that may not be on a committee, but want to Zoom in and listen to and have some dialogue about our meetings. I think there's needs across the board for our workforce to continue to work, and that does include your elected officials and their ability to work remotely. We invested in these notebooks, and we've seen that investment from savings and salaries come back to us time and time and time again. So I would say as long as these things are going to be purchased within 2022, and we do have some accounting for boardroom Zoom setup and what we're doing with those conference rooms when we eventually utilize them again, I hope that is modified to include that, that we should make every effort to continue to see that this was a good thing from the perspective of lessons learned and how we communicate with each other.
Yeah, that's for the Board of Supervisors, the clerk of the board's department. The costs that we would budget would be associated with the committee room, not the boardroom, because that preceded the passage of ARPA. So we can't go back that far, but definitely the committee room.
Supervisor
I'm good.
McGowan.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Supervisor Rachel took care of it.
Supervisor Rachel, did you have anything further?
I just hope we support it. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll call the question. This is for the 250 for IT. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, abstentions? All right, that carries. All right, next we have Countryside.
Was Mike?
And I'm sorry that Wayne is not here. I know he's done a lot of work putting this together, but hopefully Ryan, you can give us a summary.
Oh, boy, I hope so too. I didn't read Wayne's summary because I just knew that he would do a great job with it. But it's my understanding that the time pressure here is that we have other grants that are associated with this project.
Yeah.
where we need to, I'll pull up the exact language in an email that Wayne sent. But Ethan, can you speak to that?
I think the bottom point on page 11, time constraints,
Got it.
that summarizes exactly what.
That's where I read it. Yep.
The request is considered an immediate need since the grant funding awards expire 9 September 2022 and 12 May 2023, requiring that all related construction be completed before contract expiration. I will say that I asked Wayne about the later date, the May of 2023, saying, that's not really that close. And what he said to me was that really that relates to a part of the project that has to be done basically when they do the roof, which has to be done by September 9 of 2022. So that's the deadline that we're looking at. And we need to have the funds available. And I will speak for Supervisor Wild that, this is an area where maybe we use general fund. Supervisor Dickinson
Move that.
on the motion for,
Madam-
just a second. I want to get this on the floor. 950,000 from ARPA for Countryside. Do I have a second? Thank you,
Madam-
Frank. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to second it, but thank you, Madam Chair. I also spoke with Wayne about this. One of the issues is there's a number of elements within Countryside that I'm going to refer to as kind of like red flag issues. They're required by the Department of Health or whatever kind of organizations that monitor nursing homes. And they have to be done. And if they're not done, we run the risk of being closed. So the certain amount of timing issue is also related to who are we going to get to do the work, and can we get the work done so we don't lose the grant funding? So that was the impetus that Wayne left me with, is that there's we're time crunch and a financial crunch and a red flag crunch that need to be dealt with at Countryside. Whether it comes out of ARPA or whether it comes out of the general fund, I really don't care, but it's one of these things that definitely needs to be addressed by the Board of Supervisors one way or another. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course. Ryan,
Madam
just a
Chair.
second. Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. This is one of those areas that I do care where this comes out of. I don't feel it's appropriate for ARPA. I think 950,000 will go a tremendous ways in our community. And I do agree that this has to be done, but this report, this isn't the same as what we just heard from Kevin Hajos. This report was done back in 2019 or issued to the Board of Supervisors back then. That was before we were dealing with a pandemic and before we were dealing with COVID. I've gone back, I've read that report. I did not sit on the board at the time. I've seen the updated report from January. There's no doubt it needs to be done. But when we look at the, thinking about equity amongst our 65,000 in our community, I'm not so sure that 950,000 out of ARPA dollars should be allocated for this. Rather have the motion amended, I would like, and to see it come out of general funds and support the project that way. This is a partial funding. We are funding the rest of this project out of general funds. I believe our treasurer is going out for, didn't you say recently, a couple million or?
1 million towards this project, or not this, for Countryside repairs.
Okay.
Not this particular part.
Right. So, while I appreciate the fact that it's here before us, I also think that we've seen the community respond. We've talked about where our priority areas lie. We know we only have half of this funding right now. And as far as I'm concerned, this is something that I really hope we decide to look at the general fund for. To that point, my final question is just above and beyond what we need in a reserve. Do we have a reserve spending plan? And if we don't, could we develop one that would encompass projects like these?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay. May I
Sorry.
reply?
Yes, of course.
There is no specific reserve fund for this, I don't believe, is there, Kevin? Okay, we have, the county budget officers have in the past created reserves for certain things. SUNY Adirondack comes to mind, some other things. And yes, there could be a reserve for this, but there is not at this point.
I suppose though, more specifically, if I may, is just in that 3 million that we've talked about, that could be an estimate of what we'd have over what we need for the 2 months. I mean, is there a plan on how that will be spent? It certainly seems like a cost like this could be something that is addressed through that. But more particularly, I mean, right through the full board, you can do a motion from this committee to have it paid direct to the full board, or you can do it off the floor so that we don't have a timing issue. But this timing issue was created by this very board. And I do not believe it's pandemic related.
Frank?
Yes, I believe we just transferred 250,000 out of a reserve to this project here, if not last month, the month before. The way I see it, this project needs to get done. This is the quickest way to get the money allocated. If the board wants to take it out of the general fund, then that's a discussion we can have at a later time. Maybe we split it, maybe half and half.
Ryan?
Yeah, I do agree that a portion of this ought to come out of the general fund. And I think that's what we would by default have to do. Because what we've already put to this project is $1 million bond, another 250,000, as Frank mentioned, from the reserve, which was county dollars. The grants that we've received to date, putting those against the anticipated expense for the project, we have a shortfall of 2.3 million. So the 2.3 million is what Wayne is proposing we apply $950,000 of ARPA against. And that leaves a balance of $1,350,000. So the county essentially would be in the position of dipping into the general fund to support the remainder of this project and get this work done, even if we do utilize the ARPA funds.
Frank?
And, not to go backwards, but in 2019, we established that reserve, and if things had gone at more normal, I guess I would say, I think that reserve would have grown probably to 500,000 or, maybe more than that. Because that was my intent, I guess.
Mike?
This is probably going to be a little out of character for me, but as tight as I am with that unencumbered fund balance, I really don't feel that the ARPA funds should be used for this. I think we should, it's a lot of money for 34 to 36 people out of money that could, I think, be used better in other places. I would prefer to have it come out of the fund balance myself.
I see you, Brad. Hold on. I just want to talk to the committee. Ethan?
Yeah, my opinion on this one is, this is a project that directly speaks to the most vulnerable population, the people that were most impacted by the pandemic. I think we have an obligation as government to, serve these people. I think the upgrades that were requested in here make sense. They're well documented. It's something that's been a priority, I think, just based on the fact that we have received so much funding we've been talking about for a while. Whether it comes out of ARPA or the general fund, I do think that we should be about it. I don't vote on the full board, but I can vote here, and I would definitely vote to support this as it is.
You are a full voting member here, Ethan.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I know it's
yeah.
a little weird. We've talked about that before.
Well, yeah. So like I'm saying, I'm not in the board of supervisors. I'm not in a position to influence that decision, but here I can. So I'm certainly going to support this as it is.
Beth, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to.
One of the first meetings we had, we talked about this, and Wayne talked about like high priority and medium priority, and I asked him to come back for a dollar figure with like the high priorities. Did that ever, I might have missed it. I know I missed a couple meetings. Is this 950 that high priority, or?
When I talked to him, it seemed like the whole project needed to go.
Okay.
The whole project has to get done.
The whole
Part of it.
project is a high priority, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Wayne is on.
Oh, Wayne is on.
Yes, I am here.
I see you now.
Would you like me to speak to this, or are we having other discussion?
We are on Countryside. I mean, one thing that I will chime in that hasn't been mentioned, Wayne, is that you pointed out to me that some of the project is about an HVAC system to upgrade the filtration for airborne viruses, which I think is very relevant to the COVID issue. What Beth was asking about, though, is are there pieces of this project that are higher priority than others that you can flush out dollar amounts for?
Well, the direct COVID response is the air filtration system, which is $1.2 million as estimated by Clark Patterson. We're asking for 950,000 of that simply because of the cap on the capital funds. As far as the ARPA regulations go, and the reporting requirements. So, as I've mentioned previously, there is no air filtration in any of the rooms. So the rooms in the building cannot meet the MERV 13 standards for air filtration, nor the exchange rates required actually by building code. So from that perspective, quite honestly, we should be asking for 1.2 million for the MERV 13 compliance stuff. So we dropped it down to 950 simply because of the duplication of costs. Because they'll already be in there doing work on the building. The actual cost to do this is less than the 1.2 million if it was a standalone project. So it's part and parcel. You can't separate it out. And I think you've heard Kevin Hajo say that, the rest of the project, a lot of it is 40 years of deferred maintenance, but this money here is directly related to the HVAC MERV 13 compliance for airborne particles and viruses.
Supervisor Sieber.
I just have a question, Wayne. Was that 2019 report, did that identify this filtration system?
It identified a need in the building for upgrade to the HVAC. The MERV 13, and that's why you have a duplication of benefits test that we had to do, which brought that 1.2 million down because we were upgrading the HVAC to the MERV 13 standard, which is the COVID and airborne virus standard that has been put out by Department of Health. So
your proposal, let me just be real clear with my question. I know it's a rarity that I get right to the point, but the 810, is that what was recommended in the 2019 report, where the 810 is the increase because of the MERV 13 as it relates to COVID?
I see Kevin is here, but the 810 is a direct cost back to the MERV 13 upgrade from the HVAC that was proposed in the Beardsley report.
So it was already included as something we should have been doing in 2019 that we did not do before the pandemic hit. My last question on that then is, wait, is that what I not?
No.
I misunderstood.
When you said, Wayne, when you said Beardsley report, I was with Rachel that you meant back to the 2019 report.
The 2019 report did not have any of the HVAC MERV 13 upgrades in it.
Okay, wait. I think Kevin might be able to help too.
Okay, but he really did just answer that. If it wasn't included in that 2019 report, then I would say that update, and Kevin obviously enlightened us with it. But my other point to that is, are we eligible for reimbursement from the state if we spend this on it? I mean, typically, don't we get back a significant percentage from the state for operating this facility?
That would be up to Nina to figure out. As far as I know, the grant funds that we have through the Community Development Block Grant, we have tapped those out. We are not eligible for any more funding under that program where I got the 810,000. That's still a shortfall in the Clough Harbor report. As Ryan noted, and as I noted on the sheet there, it's, we're still 2.2 million short. If we can take 950 out of the ARPA, that still leaves the rest of that for the general fund or for the board to determine if you want to invest in the facility. And
to be clear, I'm not arguing whether we should invest in it or not, Mr. Lamont. I'm arguing where the money should be coming from. And if you're telling me it's a direct result of the pandemic, 810, then that is what I would ask that we look at for a figure and not the 900 and whatever is in front of us.
We documented as part of the grant process, yes, 810 direct cost, $938 direct for the MERV 13 upgrade over and above the Beardsley report. Yes.
Kevin, I didn't want to cut you off too, in case you had any further details you wanted to add.
I mean, I can really quickly talk to it. It's the HVAC system that was proposed by Beardsley was just to update the existing system there. When COVID came about, every hospital, every mall, every healthcare facility started to go to a new standard, which is I guess I want to say finer filters to pick up the COVID particles, which was the MERV 13 systems. So that's kind of the upgrade, or that was due to the pandemic, is the MERV 13 systems.
I need to ask a question, but why didn't we do it when we knew, like, my God, why wasn't that before our board to look at during COVID and say, hey, we got to find this money for a filtration system for our most vulnerable that we're sitting here talking about today?
Yeah, I won't come back and say that it wasn't talked about, but I don't think it was you're fully required to change these MERV 13 systems. I think moving forward, we thought that this would be the best thing to do that facility is to put in that MERV 13 system.
And I'll come to you, Brad, in a second. Ray, I'll put you on the spot if you want to say anything.
Well, I'm hearing the treasurer saying that he feels that it should come from the general fund. Supervisor Seaver seems to think it should come from the general fund. My concern, just as a citizen, is that DOH will shut it down for sure if we don't move forward and do this in one way or the other. And I'm concerned about the grants expiring as well, and that's another $1 million that could go down the tubes. So, I would defer to the expertise around the table in terms of where the funding should come from. But as a citizen, I want to make sure it gets done. And I suppose, listening to what I've heard here today, that I would vote no for it coming from ARPA, and that it should come. The recommendation from the committee, if we can do that, would be that it come from the general.
Madam Chair.
I think everyone agrees it's got to get done. We've got to get it done. Where do we get it from?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sure. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure how we do this, but there's a timing situation here, and I'd like to find some kind of resolution coming out of this committee that goes to the full board for the next board meeting to bring this up and to have at least a discussion in terms of how the full board feels about this funding.
Mike, how does the committee feel about an amendment to the resolution to fund $810,938 from ARPA?
From my perspective, I'll make that, motion to modify the resolution, but I just want to get it done.
I just feel like that might be cleaner and get through the board. Okay, Brad, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess my question is, I know we went for a bond. We actually really have a good bond rating now. Is there a possibility of maybe increasing that bond?
Well,
I mean, it's a simpler solution.
not at this point, because I've already started the works. We have the resolutions approved for X number of dollars. I can't just amend it.
Yeah.
We would have to stop now and start the whole process all over again.
That was not a solution, but good. Thank
I
you.
was just trying to think of the.
Or
think-
go
I know.
for another.
Hi, I'm with you, Brad. Doug,
Yeah, you're going around. I haven't spoken on this yet. I'm going to vote for having it come out of the general fund. For a number of reasons that's already been said around this room. And I take I put a lot of credibility in the treasurer, feeling comfortable or not comfortable on situations. And his recommendation was the general fund, and he's the keeper of the dollar. So I'm going to vote no on this specific amendment that we use ARPA funds for this. But we can bring it up at the board meeting, which is only a week and a half away, to get it approved, to have it come out of the general fund. Am I correct? We can do it by the 18th, correct, Mr. Moore?
If that's a proposal, you would have to have a resolution come off the floor, or maybe you would amend the existing budget amendment resolution. No, it would be a separate resolution because it's a fund balance appropriation, and it would be a fund balance appropriation, just to be clear, in the amount of $2,302,038, right?
Well, we were going to do the original 1,000,003, correct, from the general fund, and we're adding now this amount, which we had cut away to have ARPA pay for. So we're adding that what is it, 900,000 here or a million? Right here.
I just want to make sure we're all operating on the same facts. We have a shortfall of 2.3 million.
Correct. And
And
that
of that, we're only looking at 950,000 from ARPA.
from ARPA. but
There's a
we're-
motion on the table
Correct,
for that,
correct. And I'm going to vote against that
right?
particular
Right.
motion.
Dennis?
We're sitting on this committee to spend this $12 million, and every time we turn around to have something to spend it on, we don't want to spend it. We're going to end up at the end of the year with half the money not spent. This is a bona fide project. It falls under the parameters that we need for spending this ARPA money. So let's spend the money. Stop fooling around. If you want to drop it to 810, it doesn't make any difference to me. But we need to take the money out of ARPA and move on. We'll never spend this money if we keep doing this every time we bring up some subject.
Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. With all due respect to our co-chair, this committee was formed exactly for that purpose, was to sit here and talk about this, to have these discussions, to listen to our community and to find ways that we can maximize those dollars. I don't think any of us are arguing that this doesn't need to be done, but this is a county responsibility and it's one that's been there for quite some time. I don't know why out of this committee, we couldn't make a referral to the full board asking that they use general fund money for the requested amount from ARPA, that we did our jobs and we looked at something and made a determination. Why would that not be permitted?
Because we're trying to spend this ARPA money.
Which we will not have a problem spending,
You tell me
Supervisor.
that, but none of these numbers come anywhere near what we got here.
We're just getting started.
I understand that, but I still think that we need to start spending some of this money. We can't keep sending them back to other things. It falls under the parameters, we should spend the money,
I hear
my
you.
opinion.
I see Mike, and then we'll call the question for the motion that's on the table.
Madam Chair, I was just going to ask to see if we can call the question. I'm in support of this.
I would
800
like to do it by raising your hand. All those in favor of the 950 for ARPA, out of ARPA, please raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mike is 7, and Wayne is 8. All those opposed from the ARPA, I know, just for the ARPA funds for the 950,000, I see 4 opposed.
We're voting remotely. I just think we should do it by voice. That's all.
You mean roll call?
Right. I mean, it's
Okay.
Mr. Dickinson,
Yes.
Ms. Bramer,
Yes.
Mr. Lamont,
Yes.
Mr. Agnew,
No.
Ms. Gillis,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
No,
Mr. Wild,
Yes,
Ms. Seaver,
No.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Swan,
No.
Mr. Getty.
Yes.
We've got 8 in favor. So it passes.
It passes. Thank you.
God help us at the board meeting.
Well, I do hear you there.
you're the one,
yes.
Mike.
Everyone agrees this needs to get done. Is there a motion is anyone willing to consider a motion from the committee to have the remainder of the shortfall covered by general fund? Ryan,
I move that.
I'll second that.
thank you. That was a sort of off the spur of the moment thing. Maybe that could be amended at the full board. I didn't do the figures. Does anyone have any discussion? Or questions about what exactly that motion is? The remainder of the 2.3 million would be paid out of, we're recommending that the full board consider paying the rest out of general fund.
Which
Yes,
they were going to
Supervisor
do it
Seaver.
along-
With all due respect, where else are they going to do it from? I
Right.
mean, I don't know what number you're talking about, but the only thing before us today was 950. Then we nailed it down to 810 for a system that we should have, this, whatever.
Doug?
Well, yeah, where else were you going to get it? So, I mean,
Well-
I think we're just speaking the obvious, stating the obvious. I mean, if you need to have that written down as the obvious, then fine, but I mean, that's,
Claudia, we got one item left on here. It's 5:15.
I know. Let me call the question on that motion
Okay.
for the remainder coming out of general fund. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries if anyone's seeking a roll call. Okay. We do. We have a couple more things, but I don't think we need to go through administration. Ethan, go.
Yeah, excuse me, my child's got a daycare that's gonna close.
Oh dear, we don't need that.
We'll have more daycare
Childcare.
in the near future, Ethan, so.
Sorry.
Um,
I'm locked
I
up.
don't
Yeah.
think there's an emergency need to get to the administration of funding, right, Ryan? Okay.
No.
And we still have a motion about legislative fixes on gas prices. You want to, we'll leave it pending.
If by the time it's done, if it doesn't matter, yeah, I'll withdraw the discussions in this committee.
I'll just leave it on if that's all right.
I'd like it on
Yeah.
the gas discussion.
And I do want to make an announcement that I was wrong about the city's use of ARPA. They use their CARES Act for the loan funding. Business funding program. And tentative meeting was March 22nd. That's not next week, but the week after. Does that date work for people?
That doesn't work for me.
Okay, what about Thursday?
Thursday would be fine, but
Fine?
Mhm.
Not fine for Rachel?
What are we looking at?
Neither day
March
works for me.
23rd.
Wednesday? March 23rd? Wednesday, March 23rd,
Time.
3?
It's good with everybody else. Good with me.
what day?
23rd?
That Wednesday?
Yeah.
That's
I will not be available that day.
You're not available, Wayne?
No.
Okay, should we look out the next week, March 29th?
I'm good on the 29th.
Yeah,
I mean-
same here. Yeah.
You're good? Okay. Me too. Let's do that. March 29th at 3.
Beautiful.
All right, good. Motion
29th.
motion to adjourn. Ryan, oh, we need discussion on that motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry. I wanted to report, if anybody's interested, we've allocated $1,501,306. And the bulk of that, $1,481,580 was done today.
And let's remember, this is out of the first 6.1 million. We got another 6.1 million coming within 2 years, and we have 5 years to spend it, I believe is the time frame. So
4
Right.
years to spend, right?
4 years,
Until the end of 2026.
26. So yeah, 4 more years.
Anything further? Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.